Thank you for joining us today on the Dirty Hands of the Republic. We're going to talk about President Joe Biden, the Commander-in-Chief. What's his name? The big guy?
Brandon.
Mr. 10%? All right. Apparently he was in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, over there in the thing.
Yes. In Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania on August 30th, 2022. And he basically stated that the military can obliterate the Second Amendment was the point. In other words, if they decide to take away our weapons, the military can do it. And my first question is, well, how did that go in Afghanistan? Right? And my second question would be, how did that go in Iraq? And then my third question would be, how did that go in Vietnam? So I'm curious what gives him the confidence that he thinks, number one, he can erase the Second Amendment, and number two, that they're going to be successful about it. What do you think?
Well, I think a guy in a Viking hat led an insurrection, as they call it. What had happened if they had all had guns? Okay. And also, what does he think the Constitution is for? If the government gets too left or too right or tyrannical, it's so we can defend ourselves.
Right. And I'm just fascinated. It seems like they want to start a civil war, right? It seems like that's what they're edging for, because their rhetoric is certainly, they're not de-escalating, as we've talked about earlier. They are escalating the rhetoric to the point that I think they're trying to start a fight. And I'm curious, to what end does that serve?
Well, I don't know if they're trying to start a fight. I don't think they are. I think they're trying to collapse the economy so the government can step in. Because one of the rules of radicals was not, mess with an armed populace until they shoot you. Okay, one of the rules of radicals by, what was his name? Hillary Clinton worked for him. Saul Alinsky, okay,
right,
was to create a problem, rub it raw, and then step in with a solution.
Right.
So I think that's what they want to do, is collapse the economy, because everything else they're doing certainly will work to collapse economies. Okay. And this is a worldwide thing. It's for the Great Reset, I think.
Yeah.
That way the government, one world government, can step in and say, hey, here you go. Here's your food. Poor people. Here you go. Here's your heating oil. Here's this. Here's that. Oh, give us all those rights. Every one of them you had.
So, who is it? Which master do they serve? They clearly don't serve we the people. And this is clearly not a government of we the people anymore.
No, not at all.
But they do serve a master, and I'm curious which master it is they serve. For example, we're seeing so many strange things with the FBI and how this entirely asymmetrical enforcement of the law that has occurred with the FBI in the way they treat, Donald Trump and Republicans, like, say Roger Stone, for example, or the way they've gone after others like Steve Bannon, and, just others that were in the orbit of Donald Trump when he was running for president or while he was president, versus the way they treat Democrats or people in the orbit of the Democrat National Committee get ignored. Their crimes are ignored, right?
Yeah, the two-tier justice system.
And so what I find with, even with lawyers, right, in the Texas lawyer community, you see these people who say, well, if, Hillary Clinton had committed a crime, they would have charged her with it.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Well, these are lawyers that are choosing not to look at the law.
Well,
they're choosing to ignore it. They're choosing to repeat something that they've heard.
So what it harkens back to me is when Jesus Christ was confronting the Pharisees at the temple, right? And there was an argument back and forth where they kind of had the same argument. Well, if we were doing something wrong, the temple would do something about it, is the argument that the Pharisees were coming from. And then Jesus Christ looked at them and said, there are none so blind as those who refuse to see. Yeah. And I just think that what we're seeing manifest itself is, people in the legal community who refuse to see the truth because it doesn't fit their political narrative. Their political agenda is confronted by the truth, and so they ignore it.
So that's one way of putting it. I think they know the truth, and they go, I don't care. because it's our side. I mean, as an attorney, can you look at what the stuff that Hillary Clinton did? Okay. And even what did Comey say? She was extremely careless. In other words, negligent. I mean.
But here's the thing: is that mental state or that mens rea, as you might say, is not relevant to the statute, right? Under Title 18 of the United States Code or under Title 10, but I think it was Section 1012 she was violating, where it said if you wrongfully obtained, transferred, destroyed government property, it was a felony, right? And that even
she was also careless with it, and that's in the statute too.
But that applied it applied to property that was both tangible and intangible property, right? So emails are intangible.
Yeah.
However, she destroyed them and she bragged about it, right? Well, technically under the law, that was a felony.
Yeah. Now she brags about it openly.
Yeah. And I know people, and the other thing that really drives me insane is you hear, and it's mostly Democrat or leftist attorneys that I deal with who like to use the word whataboutism. Oh, well, that's just a nice whataboutism. When what they really don't understand, what they're admitting to, is asymmetry of law enforcement. In other words, there's this asymmetrical, unbalanced, unfair enforcement of the law. So there's one rule and one set of standard for one political group. There's a different for another, and they think it's okay. They think it's justified. And what they don't seem to understand is that's what civil wars are made of. That thing is what civil wars are made of.
Do you think they think it's justified, or they just?
No, I think they think it's justified because they're doing God's work. They're going to save the.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I mean. So you think they don't think it's justified? They just think it's our side and we don't care.
Well, from my point of view, they're no different than the holy rollers I dealt with back in the 90s, when I was in college, at the University of Houston. You'd have these religious groups that would, come on campus and try to recruit, and they were just, I thought they were crazy people, but they were the holy roller types that were going to convert everybody to Jesus. And anyway, my point being is, a lot of the people on the left, they eschew religion. They deny the existence of God or whatever, or they just don't believe it, or they don't have that, sense of commitment or conviction to the Word of God. But they substitute, their, the religion that you might find in the Bible or any other with a secular religion in government. In other words, they replace the God of the Bible with the God of government.
Yeah, exactly. They worship government. But
either way, it's still a religion.
Certainly.
Okay. And I think it makes them no different than the holy rollers that were profligate in the 90s. I don't know if you went to college back in the 90s. I did. It was just all over the place. It was just you'd go to a gun show, right? And they would try to recruit you walking into a gun show in the 90s back in Texas.
Well, God bless them.
It was, I don't know, aggravating. Anyhow, and it got to the point that when you would run for office as a Republican, or you would, work with the local Republican Party executive committee or anything like that to try to become a candidate, they would start asking you, what church do you go to? Who's the pastor? Blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, there's no religious test in the Constitution, so please stop asking me those questions. It's not, constitutionally appropriate. But nevertheless, what we have now are people who are on the left, who are Democrats, that adhere to this religiosity of belief that they're going to save the world now because we're all going to burn to death in 10 years or 12 years. I don't know what the climate schedule is right now, but I know within a decade we're all going to die.
Well,
allegedly.
Goldilocks, Greta Thunberg, she said 12 years.
Okay. I think AOC said, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said something to the...
Yeah, she was quoting Goldilocks.
Okay. And consequently, they really believe that they're, doing this holy work, or they're on this crusade, right? And it's really hard to negotiate with crusaders. And I think they've turned the president of the United States into a crusader against his own country, against his own people, right? Because you're supposed to be president over everyone.
Yeah, I think they took a dolt who would say whatever was popular at the time.
Okay.
I don't think he believes in anything. I don't think he Or now he believes in tapioca pudding, but other than that, he never believed anything in the first place.
Well, I mean, you can be a crusader who's just haplessly following the crusade. You don't have to be in the front of it.
Well, yes. I mean,
the last crusader is just as dangerous as the first one in the group. And, I don't know where he falls in the group, but
yeah,
he's equally dangerous because he's president of the United States, right? He's signing executive orders.
I don't think so.
He's signing laws. He's making policy that will put the government in a position to, wreck the country. And I think I'm starting to believe truly that that's what they want to do. They want to wreck the country because it's the only logical explanation for driving up the price of energy, driving up the price of food, making water scarce, like Lake Mead in Nevada's going down. Mm-hmm. And then I think there's a couple of other lakes in that Colorado River system that are also becoming depleted, and they're not trying to do anything to cure it. I think they want it to happen.
The crime scene unit there is hoping for rain because they keep calling them out there.
Like another body at Lake Mead. Oh, more paperwork. It's going to start. It'll cause a paperwork crisis.
Yes. Well, now what I said before, they're looking for a collapse, so they can step in. But with what you said, looking to push it, looking to push a civil war. Perhaps they're looking to push a civil war so they can readily defeat it and then go, hey, got to get rid of all AR-15s. We've got to get rid of all guns, all of them.
Yeah, but what's the logical end to that? I mean, are they going to turn the country over to the Chinese? I just don't. I mean, for example,
well, they can do whatever they want. That's what the logical end is. What will happen? I don't know. Will the Chinese say, "Oh, look, you messed up," and invade? I don't know. But what they want is control over everybody.
Okay, I mean, fair enough. But to what end? I guess maybe that's my question. My eternal question is to what end? It doesn't make any sense.
I bet you there's 10 different agendas out there.
Because I do have kids, and I wonder what kind of country they're going to inherit in the future. It's certainly not going to be the one I inherited, and that's what breaks my heart. Is the one that I believe the country my children will inherit will be worse than the one I got from my parents.
Certainly could be. I hope not, but it certainly could be.
Consequently, I think people in general need to wake up, and I think everybody out there needs to start realizing that the system is working against you. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you're conservative or liberal, I really believe the system is working against everyone. And when you have a president that is willing to get up and say, well, that's okay. If you resist me, I have a military and I have nuclear bombs and F-15s, which is literally what he said. We have F-15s and nuclear bombs. Mm-hmm. Comment down below. We'd like to hear what you have to say. Like and subscribe. We always appreciate it. A thumbs up on the videos, always appreciated. Helps push up the algorithm. And we'll see you in the next DHR video.